Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Nosa of Nosa Capital, coming to you on a rather warmish afternoon from the Southern Hemisphere. Well, a lot has happened this week, ladies and gentlemen. And El Presidente himself, I'm talking about President Trump, has put on the tariffs and now put a sort of 90-day sort of delay on these tariffs, done a blanket 10% tariffs across the world, or across the board, I beg your pardon, and taking it hard to the Chinese, and the Chinese are not going to back down. I think the president he's been making some garrulous statements as expected. And in particular, I think the statements from the Vice President, J.D. Vance, about the Chinese peasants, about manufacturing and all that, was just absolutely pathetic. And it sort of exposed, in my opinion, the fact that this guy doesn't even know anything about China. Because if he did, he wouldn't say that. I mean, anybody who's been to China, and yours truly has been to China twice, and I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that I don't know what China he's thinking about. I suppose it's the China of the 1950s he's still got in his brain. If that's the China he's thinking of, well, he's seriously mistaken. People have said, oh, it's all that kind of stuff about the something to do with the economy crashing. And ladies and gentlemen, the President Trump has had to do what he had to do because of the bond market. The Japanese have particular problems, and so they are selling bonds to protect themselves, as they should. And other parts of the world are beginning to realize, particularly those of us in the Southern Hemisphere, or the Global South, as they like to call it these days, instead of the Third World that they used to call it in the old days. Remember? Those of you old enough who will still remember. All it's doing is signaling to us why we cannot trust the United States. And we want to do business with them, but we now know that they're not a reliable partner. For those who've already known this, fine. But for those that are just beginning to understand, you can see why. And you can see why the BRICS nations and other members of the Global South are thinking of finding alternative ways, or looking into alternative ways, not thinking. They already got systems built in place in terms of doing international business. Now, one of the big announcements, excuse me, I know I'm going on about this, but it needs to be said. One of the big announcements that has gone relatively mentioned or unpublished on the mainstream media has been the 1.2 trillion digital yuan market payment system that has been opened up by the Chinese. And I believe, and I stand to be corrected here, but I believe it was a company in the UAE and someone, I don't know whether it's the government in Malaysia or something like that, that did a transaction, an international payment transaction, which lasted total time of 8 seconds on the blockchain, removing all the intermediaries, or as we say, the rentier classes, who, for those of you who've sent money in the past across to different countries, know that you'd send like $100 to someone, and by the time it goes through the entire system, maybe $70 gets to the person that you're sending the money to. So you understand these matters. Now, if you were to send money like that through the SWIFT system, it's going to take between 3 to 5 days. In this day and age of mega digital applications, mega fast internet connections, and we're still doing the old-fashioned SWIFT system, that's just ridiculous. Not to mention that the SWIFT itself has been turned into a sort of, it's been weaponized against other nations. I mean, this is something that has not been mentioned or talked about, and only talked about in very few areas, and needs to be out there. But anyway, I digress. Let me get back to what we are here for, the rough and ready crypto analysis. As I said, it's not in-depth analysis, but it's analysis at one glance that can easily tell you what's going to happen within the markets. As always, ladies and gentlemen, we start with Bitcoin. Bitcoin currently trading at 81,544, as we can see here. And I've told you this area here. Now, let me say this, a slight digression, but remaining within the topic. A friend of mine likes to call these areas here within the volume profile. She calls them the ice cream scoops. So she talks about, imagine, I mean, all of you have been there when you open up a tub of ice cream and you get your spoon and you just stick it in and it comes out and it gets all sorts of shapes. So I started to call these things ice cream scoops. So at least now you understand where it's come from. As we can see with the volume profile here, it's very reasonably even, but it's got a few ice cream scoops here. Now, until we get out, until the price of Bitcoin, should I say not we, but the price of Bitcoin itself gets out of these areas of ice cream scoops, we're going to continue to get this volatility trading sideways, as we can see here in the price action. As also, we've got 1, 2, 3 areas of supply, which means that Bitcoin, to get back to about the 100 and something, it needs to get through these areas. Remember, the areas of supply are areas whereby people or the institutions and retail generally tend to sell, but mostly institutional tend to sell in these areas. At the bottom here, we can see that we've got 2 areas here that overlap. Areas of demand, where this is areas here. So now, if you look at most pundits of what they've been saying, they've been talking about buying somewhere in this area. Looking at our Fibonacci, we can see that this area here at 74,238 at the 61.8 is almost like an area of support. Now, I've said to people that if it breaks this area, now remember I told you if it breaks 78, it's going to 76, which it did. If it breaks this area, we're going down to 70. Now, we may even dip into this area here, but I can't see us going below 65. And this is also supported here at the 78.6 on the Fibonacci at 64,691, approximately 65,000. I think that there might be parties who would like to see the price come here into this area here and then do their, make their purchases. But we shall see how that goes. I don't expect anything dramatic to happen to Bitcoin anytime soon, but I would say to people, keep your eyes out on this one, because I suspect that there's going to be very dramatic changes taking place. In other words, changes that you will not be expecting, just like we've had the last few couple of days, especially when the announcement came about putting a kind of 90-day moratorium in terms of the tariffs by President Trump. So watch out for that. I'm not going to bother putting on the Ichimoku today. What I will do though is, instead of the Ichimoku, we already know what's going to happen. Let's put our anchored VWAP. And based on these principles here, using the anchored VWAP, we can see that under this, the price action here is under the anchored VWAP. That means that the sellers are still in control. So wait and see what happens over time. Okay. Let's do the usual. Let's go to Binance. Again, a couple of areas of supply. We can see that the volume profile is fairly even here. We've got an area of demand right down here. This is between I think it's 471 and 509. The 509 here is acted almost like an area of support. If you look at it all the way from here, and we've got 1, 2, 3 areas of supply up here. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, overall, it's just trading sideways. If you look at it, if we this is just a sideways trade, and it's just a horrible trade. Now, it's not that you can't trade sideways. You can, but there's not really anything to talk about here. Let's just put our... Again, we've got our anchored VWAP, and as you can see, the price action in recent times has been under the anchored VWAP. Sellers are still in control. It's going to be maybe something dramatic will happen within the Binance ecosystem to make any major changes, but we shall have to wait and see. Next, let's look at Ethereum. I am sure many of you have seen reports about Ethereum being utterly useless. A series of lower highs and lower lows just coming down. There's no question about that. No need to put anything like the Ichimoku on this. We already know. I mean, if you see my previous videos, you know that there's just no need to even do anything here. If we look at our anchored VWAP, if we take it from here, definitely below it. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas of supply. A few ice cream scoops here. Other than that, volume profile fairly even. I don't expect anything dramatic to happen here. I don't expect the price. Looking at this and looking at the way it is, except something really, I mean, it's got to be something really dramatic happening to Ethereum. I mean, like there's this kind of announcement whereby maybe everybody's getting some free Ethereum or something like that. It's got to be something like that to really make changes. I can't see at this particular time. I don't see Ethereum going above $2,000 at most, if that. But in the world of crypto, you can never tell about what could possibly happen. I don't think it's going to go. I don't see anything really happening. I think we are in for a bit of a beating on this one, and many people, yours truly included, have bridged a lot of Ethereum into Solana over time. There's a lot more going on Solana. It's more progressive. More and more cryptos are going over to Solana, so it's kind of making Ethereum a bit obsolete. I mean, there are a lot of stories. I'm not going to bore you with all those stories. There's a crap load of stories about Ethereum and the future possibilities, but we'll just have to wait and see. In crypto, you can always be surprised. Okay, let's move on to Solana. And as you can see here, the mighty Solana, a series of lower highs and lower lows. I beg your pardon for saying that. Lower highs and lower lows. We've got a big overlap, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with an overlap here of the areas of supply. No areas of demand in sight at the moment. There were a few days ago. Volume profile fairly even. Now, you could say, just looking at this, that Solana is also dead because of what's, with this price action. And you wouldn't be right just at a glance looking at it. But if you study what's going on with Solana, so much activities are going on in Solana that it's just a matter of time. I mean, there's been a series of buying opportunities. Remember, I told you at one time anything under 200, anything under 130, under 120. And now we've got anything under 110 is a buying opportunity. If you're like me, I have been accumulating Solana. And like I said before, this is no financial advice, of course, but I think Solana is the place to be. And I don't think that you should really hesitate in trying to do this. I think you should try and get in there. And some of those useless coins you might have, you might want to switch over to Solana if you can, or as soon as you can. Again, no financial advice, but it's pretty obvious. Looking at what's going on in the markets and looking at what's going on within not just the Solana ecosystem, but the entire crypto ecosystem. One moment, please. Just taking a sip of my tea. And I think that's the most important thing. I know people have talked about Pump.fun and all the meme coins. I think the meme coin season, the altcoin season was the meme coin season, really. So I'm not expecting any altcoin season. People are still talking about altcoin seasons. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had that, and that's the meme coins. So, just one more thing here. Let's have a look at if we can find areas of support. Let's just have a look. Not really, just areas of more of resistance than support. But anyway, I thought I should just do that very quickly and just have a look at what it looks like. Fibonacci. Anyway, let's move on. Next, we've got Sui. Sui is that's taken another battering again, and massive opportunities here. Anything, if you can get something under $2.50, maybe even under $2 if you can, you should try and get it. It's $2.18 at the moment. A few days ago, we were down to $1.71, under $2. And also area of accumulation. There's going to be great things done on Sui. A lot of things are coming through. I think there's an opportunity for you to buy if you can. Again, no financial advice, of course. a whole series of lower highs and lower lows. 1, 2, 3, 4 areas of supply, no areas of demand. Well, an area of demand right at the bottom here, which is down at in the late 70s cents. Volume profile fairly even. If you can get anything under about $2.20, $2.30, perfect opportunity. If you can get it cheaper, even better. If you are interested in this particular cryptocurrency. So, right. Excuse me. Next, we move on to we're going to look at Moodeng. And absolutely almost no hope on this one. It's just this cryptocurrency is strictly, as I said, strictly for speculation. We've got a massive area of the supply here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas of supply. No area of demand in sight. I was surprised that it even went even lower. If you look at this here, even went, we traded sideways for quite a while and it went lower, and then traded sideways for quite a while and it went even lower. We actually thought around where the point of control is, that was where, that was the low point. Now, if you're a long-term holder, I've said it before and I'll say it again, if you're a long-term holder, I got to tell you guys, it's going to be painful. It's going to be very painful. If you're a speculator, perfect opportunity. As I said, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas of supply where you can actually buy so cheaply and sell for a profit. Let's wait and see. Now, I think that some of the quality meme coins might make a comeback. Most will die a natural death, and rightly so. Let's hope, for those of you who hold Moodeng, let's hope that Moodeng is not one of them. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at WIF. WIF is also in the same boat. And just when I thought that WIF couldn't go any lower, it actually did go lower again. Currently, the price is about 30. It's currently $0.367 or 36 cents. We've got a week low at about 30 cents. With what it's doing, I won't be surprised if it goes any lower. We've got we've got like 2 reasonably sized ice cream scoops here, sparse volume here at the top here in the volume profile. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 with one overlap of areas of supply. Again, another cryptocurrency specifically geared at the moment with the current dispensation is geared towards speculators who can come in very cheaply and sell at these areas of supply and make their profits. Again, if you're a long-term holder, you're going to be very patient and keep your fingers crossed that it's also one of those coins that will make a comeback. Anyway, I think that's just about it in today's session. And look, to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, you should expect that the markets are going to continue to be extremely volatile due to the current geoeconomic situation. And of course, the geopolitics in terms of a possible war between the United States and Iran. Now, for those of you who have studied closely, you can see that the Houthis in Yemen, they're going to, the United States are going to keep attacking them, and the Houthis are not going to back down. So, while they are firing some missiles of maybe 100 or 200 quid, and the United States wasting billions, something's going to have to give. So you've got all that, and of course the Iranian situation, what's going on in the Middle. I mean, the West Asia or the Middle East generally is just a nightmare. And until those nightmares come to an end, expect volatile sessions within the markets, all the markets, including the futures, commodities, and of course the crypto market. Anyway, that's me. So as always, keep your eyes and ears open and your trading sharp. Have a good one. Bye.